We mentioned at the top we'd get to that other big development on the Russia probe. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Republican Devin Nunes, is now demanding a witness list and documents related to the Russia investigation by a January 3rd deadline. He's slamming the Justice Department and the FBI in a strongly worded letter obtained exclusively by Fox News' John Roberts. He says the Bureau and the department have not effectively responded to congressional demands for more information about one of the most critical components of the alleged Russia collusion probe, the so-called Steele dossier. It's named after its author, former British intelligence agent named Christopher Steele, who compiled the report for a research firm with financial backing from the DNC. It contains many unverified salacious allegations about President Trump. Chairman Nunes sounds clearly frustrated in the letter, saying the agencies continue to slow walk his request, and concludes that at this point, quote, the DOJ and FBI need to be investigating themselves. A call echoed a short while ago by Trey Gowdy, a fellow member of the Intelligence Committee.
They need to produce the witnesses and the information. This has taken longer than it should and longer than it needs to.
Now, for more on this, let's bring in Daniel Halper. He's a contributing editor for the Washington Free Beacon, and Niall Stenage, the White House columnist for The Hill. I want to start with you, Daniel. This is a strongly worded letter, and we see those flying around Washington, and then nobody ever does anything. But it's Devin Nunes has been meaning business. He's the one who's shaking loose these details about Fusion GPS and the DNC and the Clinton campaign. And now when he sends this letter, what do you think happens next?
Well, look, and the letter's not totally out of left field. There's been growing support for more pressure on the FBI and the Justice Department to get more transparency in this process. So I think that voice that's growing is going to continue to grow even louder, and I think there's going to be more and more pressure. And at some point, you got to wonder, the Justice Department, well, the FBI is under the Justice Department, which is in the executive branch, which is under Donald Trump's purview. Mm-hmm. At what point will President Trump actually take action and start firing people or start demanding answers to these questions? And you got to think that it may come sooner rather than later.
Really? Because the president in this interview with the New York Times said something interesting now. Among other things, he said, quote, I have absolute right, the president said, to do what I want to do with the Justice Department. But for purposes of hopefully thinking I'm going to be treated fairly, I've stayed uninvolved with this particular matter. He seems to be saying, I want to make sure I get a fair shake with Robert Mueller, so I don't want to do anything rash with the Justice Department in terms of going after FBI agents like Peter Strzok. And so he's being transparent about that. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people wondering tonight, why in the world does Peter Strzok, who sent all these anti-Trump texts, still have a job?
Well, there are a couple of things there, Ed. I thought that the president's comments in that New York Times interview were very interesting because he emphasized that he believes Mueller is going to be fair. Now, I assume that's a sincere belief, but it's also of a piece of the legal strategy or the strategy of his legal team, which has been to cooperate with Mueller to the greatest extent possible, even while we have Republican members of Congress like Mr. Nunes adopting a much more critical line.
You're right. I mean, Ty Cobb, one of the White House lawyers, has consistently said he thinks that the sort of presidential phase of the Mueller probe is wrapping up soon, that there will not be obstruction of justice. He's been mocked by some people in the media, and yet, as you say, the president seems to be buying into that, that he's going to get a fair shake, and he's not going to do anything rash. But, Daniel, I want to go back to this notion of the president talking about the Justice Department. You said a moment ago, there could be something imminent here. Do you think in the days ahead we'll see firings? Bruce Orr at the Justice Department, others who have had very questionable roles in the dossier.
I don't know about in the days ahead. I just think that the president he is able to put pressure and to make things happen. This is under his purview. This is separate from the Mueller investigation, though you do have to believe that if the Mueller investigation weren't going on, we wouldn't quite be in these circumstances. So they're obviously all connected. But it is separate, and you wonder, the president clearly doesn't think that the Justice Department's acting adequately. He doesn't think the FBI is acting appropriately. At what point does he say we need to have the Justice Department and FBI be trusted by the American people? Yeah. We need them to act appropriately, and I'm going to do something about it.
I want to ask you, that we're talking about whether the president gets a fair shake in the judicial process and in the Justice Department and the FBI. There's also the question of whether he's getting a fair shake with the media. Something caught my eye, Axios today. They had Gallup data that looked at coverage of past administrations. And in terms of, say, Clinton 93, his first year in office, negative coverage 28%, positive 27, neither 44. Bush 2001, 28% negative, 22 positive. Obama, this is interesting, so much much more positive. 42% of his first few months in office, positive, 20% negative. But Donald Trump, 62% negative, 5% of the coverage positive. This is, pardon me, I said Gallup. This is the Pew Research Center. This is not a conservative outfit, Niall. What in the world does this tell you? And there are some who say they're surprised it's only 62% negative, that the coverage of Donald Trump is just plain nasty.
Well, look, Ed, no one ever makes friends by going on TV and defending the media, but let me take a little bit of a shot at it here. I'm not a huge fan of these kind of polls for a very specific reason, and it's that I don't think they take into account the degree to which events drive coverage. If you're the head coach of the team that wins the Super Bowl, you get better coverage than the guy who loses. That's not media prejudice. This poll was based on the first 60 days of Donald Trump's presidency. There were a lot of very controversial things that happened there, including Michael Flynn's resignation, including widespread protests.
Sure.
Those things are going to get negative coverage. There's a broader issue as well.
Sure. Big picture, Daniel, though, I got 30 seconds.
Well, look, the New England Patriots may disagree. I mean, there are plenty of good teams that get bad coverage. Look, President Trump, it's very clear the media hates Donald Trump. There's just no way to, perhaps it's justified, perhaps it's not. But they objectively hate Donald Trump, and you can see it in their coverage every single day.
Gentlemen, appreciate you coming in. Happy New Year almost.
Thank you.
China, meanwhile, fighting back economically against that $1.5 trillion tax cut signed into law last Friday by the president. And another sign of just how much of an impact that tax cut may have on the U.S. economy, Beijing now says it will temporarily exempt foreign companies from paying any taxes, as long as they invest those earnings in sectors encouraged, of course, by the communist government. Back here at home, more than a dozen companies say they're giving employees their bonuses or other perks in connection with passage of the tax cut, which cuts the corporate tax rate, you'll remember, from 35% to 21%. Some of the corporate announcements go beyond a one-time bonus. Today, insurance company Aflac said it will increase investment in the U.S. by $250 million and make a $500 one-time contribution to every single employee's 401k. A Disney heiress is not happy about the new tax law, even though she appears to be poised to benefit from it big time. Abigail Disney, granddaughter of Roy Disney, who is the co-founder, of course, of the Walt Disney Company, slams the new tax law in a viral video from Now This News, saying the tax cuts are just for the wealthy and corporations and they hurt ordinary Americans. Disney also blasted the tax plan for, quote, killing health insurance for over 13 million people. She claims she'll pocket something like $30 million from the tax cut. Well, I checked tonight, and the Bureau of the Fiscal Service says that acting on behalf of the Treasury Secretary, that office can accept gifts donated to the U.S. government to reduce debt held by the public. So far, in fiscal year 2018, I checked, only $192,610.56 has been donated. So, Mrs. Disney, you can give it back. Just saying. Meanwhile, actress Jenna Fisher, most known for her role as Pam on The Office, she's issuing an apology tonight after using false Democratic talking points to slam the GOP tax cuts. She tweeted she was upset the new bill will be stopping teachers from deducting the cost of classroom supplies. One problem: lawmakers left that deduction alone. Teachers can deduct up to $250 for classroom supplies. To her credit, Fisher has since deleted the tweet and issued this apology, saying she's not ashamed to admit she was wrong, and she deleted her tweet because she believes, quote, accuracy is important. Indeed. Coming up, as Democrats look to 2018, calls from within the party for new leadership getting louder. Why is Howard Dean, the former DNC chair, sounding like he wants Chuck and Nancy to go? Plus, a new report on immigration could help the president shape the debate and his policy to crack down on illegals. And later, an MS-13 gang member's murder could have been a result of a sanctuary policy. More on that and the president's crackdown on the gang after this.